I trudged through knee-deep snow, leading my reconnaissance platoon across the desolate Russian landscape. The scars on my face stung in the bitter cold, reminders of what I'd survived in Leningrad. Not all scars were visible. The wind howled like distant artillery, cutting through our inadequate winter gear as we pushed forward. My platoon was small but capable. Sergeant Mikhail Sokolov, a burly man with a thick beard, trudged beside me, muttering prayers under his breath and crossing himself whenever the wind shifted. Behind him, Corporal Alexei Morozov struggled to keep pace, barely 20 and still green. I'd caught him staring at a photo of his sweetheart more than once during our breaks. Private Nikolai Ivanov moved like a ghost among us, unnaturally quiet with hollow eyes that never seemed to focus on anything in particular. I recognized that haunted look. I'd seen it in my own mirror. Our fifth was Medic Elena Kuznetsova, the only woman in our unit. Her clinical approach to the horrors we'd all witnessed made her invaluable. Someone had to remain sane. I called a halt and spread our tattered map across a fallen log, brushing away snow with my gloved hand. The paper crackled with frost as I traced our route with a numb finger. Simple reconnaissance mission, I explained, my breath forming thick clouds. We reached the outpost near the Don River, gather intelligence on German positions, and return to headquarters. Simple, routine. The winter of 1942 had swallowed the Eastern Front in its merciless jaws. I'd seen 3 Russian winters during my service, but none compared to this one. As senior reconnaissance officer attached to the 62nd Rifle Division's forward elements, I'd overseen dozens of patrols, but something about this mission felt different. Commissar Volkov had been explicit in the briefing. Operation designated Frostbite. Tactical reconnaissance, priority Alpha. Advance to outpost Kolod, establish communication, report enemy troop movements along grid coordinates 46-38 through 52-41. Maintain radio silence until objective secured. Intelligence suggests minimal German presence, but exercise standard combat protocols. Failure is not an option, Comrade Lieutenant. Standard orders, standard threats. Yet as I watched my small unit check their PPSH submachine guns and adjust their Ushankas against the wind, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were marching towards something far worse than fascist bullets. We found shelter in the skeletal remains of a bombed-out village. The buildings stood like broken teeth against the darkening sky. I ordered the men to set up camp in what had once been someone's home. Now, it was just walls and memories. I sat apart from them, staring at the white horizon while they shared meager rations. My hands trembled as I tried to light a cigarette, the flame of my lighter dancing weakly against the wind. It wasn't just the cold making my fingers shake. The memories came, unbidden and unwelcome. Leningrad, the siege, the hunger that turned humans into something else, something worse. I'd seen what people did when starvation gnawed at their insides, what I'd done. Lieutenant? Sergeant Sokolov's voice pulled me back. He offered a dented flask. Vodka, it helps with the cold. I took a burning swallow and handed it back. The men seem nervous, Sergeant. Sokolov glanced over his shoulder before speaking. This region, there are stories, sir. What kind of stories? I didn't believe in ghost tales, but soldiers' superstitions could affect morale. He hesitated. The locals speak of spirits that hunger for human flesh, awakened by war and bloodshed. His voice dropped lower. They say the spirits enter men who have done certain things, made them hunger like they do. I dismissed it with a wave. There's enough real horror in war without inventing more, Sergeant. Night fell like a shroud. I was half asleep when I heard Private Ivanov's urgent whisper from his watch position. Lieutenant, there's something out there. I joined him at the edge of our camp, following his pointing finger toward the dark tree line. For a moment, I thought I saw something, tall and emaciated, moving between the trees. "Your imagination, Private," I said, but my voice lacked conviction. The wind seemed to whisper my name. Dawn broke with unnatural stillness. No birds, no distant gunfire, just the crunch of our boots in the snow as we approached outpost Collod. I raised my fist for caution when the first warning sign appeared. The gate hung open, creaking in the wind. "No sentries," Morozov whispered unnecessarily. "Weapons ready," I ordered, unholstering my Tokarev. Something was wrong. Military protocol dictated sentries at all times, especially this close to the front. The silence inside the outpost pressed against my eardrums. We moved from building to building, finding evidence of hasty abandonment, cold meals on plates, weapons left behind, personal items scattered. My throat tightened. Soviet soldiers didn't abandon their posts without good reason, or without orders. "Search the barracks," I commanded, fighting the urge to lower my voice. The words seemed too loud in the emptiness. The temperature inside the buildings felt lower than outside, as if cold seeped from the walls themselves. My breath clouded thicker here. Impossible, but I felt it. "Lieutenant," Kuznetsova's voice carried from the commander's office. "You need to see this." She stood over bloodstains on the wooden floor, dark, almost black, against the pale boards. Drag marks led toward the door and outside. "Could be wounded," I suggested, not believing it myself. "Then there should be medical supplies used," she countered, ever the practical medic. She pointed to the walls where deep gouges scarred the wood. These looked like claw marks, too large for any wolf or bear. I picked up the outpost logbook from the commander's desk. The final entry chilled me more than the wind outside. It came with the storm. God help us. It's so hungry. Sokolov appeared in the doorway, his face ashen. "Sir, there are symbols carved into every doorframe. Old symbols." He crossed himself. "My grandmother taught me about these. Protections against evil." I slammed the logbook shut. "We're soldiers of the Soviet Union, not peasants jumping at shadows. This outpost was attacked, perhaps by German scouts. We'll complete our reconnaissance and report back." But doubt crept in like the cold. Germans didn't leave claw marks. They didn't make veteran Soviet soldiers carve superstitious symbols before vanishing. "We should not stay here, Lieutenant," Sokolov whispered. I ignored him. Duty came before superstition, before fear, before survival. "Lieutenant," Corporal Morozov's voice carried across the compound. Tracks leading from the east gate. I joined him at the perimeter. Strange footprints led from the outpost toward the nearby forest, bare human feet in the snow. The stride was impossibly wide, as if made by someone 8 feet tall. We followed them, I decided, ignoring Sokolov's sharp intake of breath. The forest loomed before us, dark pines heavy with snow. The tracks led straight in, never deviating. Whatever made them knew exactly where it was going. 20 minutes later, we found the first body. "Mother of God," breathed Morozov. A soldier from the outpost lay frozen solid in a small clearing, his uniform tattered. His chest cavity had been torn open and emptied. Worse than the wounds was his face, eyes wide, mouth stretched in a silent scream of absolute terror. I'd seen men killed by artillery, by bullets, by bayonets. This was different. Kuznetsova knelt beside the corpse, her medical training asserting itself through obvious revulsion. "No animal I know makes wounds like these. The ribcage is peeled outward." "Precisely." Private Ivanov turned away and vomited into the snow. When he straightened, his gaze fixed on something beyond the trees, his face drained of color. "What do you see, Private?" I demanded. "A figure," he whispered, "skeletal, with antlers. It's watching us." I followed his gaze but saw nothing except shadows between trees. Yet the temperature plummeted further, our breath forming thick clouds as darkness seemed to gather, despite it being midday. "We're taking the body back for examination," I ordered. "Prepare a stretcher." As we worked, I glanced toward the tree line one last time. For a split second, I saw what Ivanov had described, a gaunt, towering silhouette with eyes that glowed like dying coals. I blinked, and it vanished. Fatigue, I told myself. Battle stress. Nothing more. Deep down, I knew I was lying. Back at the outpost, I ordered defenses established. Barricade the doors, board up windows, two-person watch rotations through the night. The blizzard hit an hour later, as if it had followed us from the forest. Visibility dropped to nothing beyond arm's reach. The radio crackled with static when we tried to contact headquarters. No transmission got through. We were alone. "Sergeant Sokolov takes first watch," I announced, handing him extra ammunition. "Wake Corporal Morozov in 4 hours." Sleep came in broken fragments. Faces from Leningrad haunted my dreams. Hollow-cheeked mothers, children with swollen bellies, the dead with their flesh carved away. I woke, gasping, reaching for my sidearm. A gunshot shattered the night. I found Sokolov at his post, rifle raised, shaking violently. Outside, the blizzard howled. "Report, Sergeant!" I had to shout over the wind. His eyes were wild. "I heard singing, Lieutenant. My wife's voice." He swallowed hard. "My wife died at Stalingrad last year, but I heard her, calling from the storm." "Snow blindness," I said. "Auditory hallucinations from extreme cold." "I saw her in the snow," he insisted. "But when I called back, she changed." Her face fell away, and underneath was something. He crossed himself again. Not human. Skeletal. Hungry. Ivanov appeared beside us. "I've seen it too, Lieutenant. It watches us." Kuznetsova joined our group, practical as always. Hallucinations can be contagious, especially in stressful situations. We're all exhausted and cold. I wanted to believe her, but the dead soldier's face haunted me, his chest cavity empty. Something had fed on him. Unable to return to sleep, we gathered in the mess hall. The temperature inside the outpost continued to drop impossibly. Our breaths hung in the air like ghost words. Morozov attempted to lighten the mood. "My mother used to make the best stew when winter came," he began. But his story shifted gradually, his voice taking on an edge I hadn't heard before. The meat had to be fresh, though, still warm. You could taste the life in it. His gaze moved from person to person, lingering too long. When his tongue darted out to wet his lips, I noticed it looked longer than it should be. "Corporal," I snapped, "report to the infirmary for a medical check." He blinked rapidly, confusion crossing his face. "Sir, did I? What was I saying?" The fear in his eyes seemed genuine, but something else had been speaking through him moments before. Morning brought no relief. The storm intensified, walls of white pressing against every window. I gathered Kuznetsova and Ivanov for inventory, while Sokolov watched Morozov, who'd grown increasingly erratic through the night. "Rations for 3 days, if we stretch them," Kuznetsova reported. But when we opened the supply crates, we found disaster. Our preserved meat had been destroyed, shredded and scattered as if by claws. Cans had been punctured, their contents spoiled. The hunger hit me then, sudden, overwhelming, disproportionate to our situation. My stomach cramped violently. From the others' faces, they felt it too. "We've eaten less than this before," I reminded them, but my mouth watered uncontrollably. Private Ivanov isolated himself in a corner of the barracks, rocking slightly. When I approached, he flinched away. "What's wrong, Private?" I kept my distance, recognizing the wild look in his eyes. "I see things, Lieutenant," he whispered. "When I look at you, at any of you, I see me, walking me." His hands trembled. "During the siege, He couldn't finish. "Leningrad," I said simply. We both knew what had happened there, what people had done to survive. He nodded miserably. "The hunger never left me," he whispered. "It's like it followed me here, getting stronger." Kuznetsova found me later in the commander's office, reading through old reports. "Lieutenant, you need to see this." She held a leather-bound journal. The outpost commander kept personal records. He describes a local legend, the Wendigo. The what? An entity born when humans consume their own kind. Her clinical tone couldn't hide her unease. The commander suspected one of his men, a Leningrad survivor, had brought something back with him, something hungry. The entries grew increasingly paranoid, before ending abruptly with a bloodstain on the final page. That night, screams woke me from fitful sleep. I grabbed my pistol and raced to the barracks. Corporal Morozov stood over Sergeant Sokolov's bed, blood dripping from his mouth. He'd bitten deep into Sokolov's arm. 3 men struggled to restrain him. "Get the medical kit," I ordered Kuznetsova. When we finally subdued him, Morozov spoke in a voice that wasn't his own. Deeper, ancient, with an accent I couldn't place.
"The hunger never dies,"
he intoned.
"It only passes from one vessel to another."
I locked him in a storage room, his inhuman screams following me down the corridor. By morning, Sokolov's wound had blackened, despite Kuznetsova's best efforts. Frostbite, she claimed, but we all knew better. The flesh around the bite was necrotic, the veins traced with black lines spreading toward his heart. "I dream of hunting you all through the snow," Sokolov admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I can taste your warm flesh between my teeth. It's getting inside all of us." His eyes met mine. "The more we hunger, the stronger it becomes." From the storage room came rhythmic thumping, Morozov throwing himself against the door. The sounds had changed through the night, no longer the impacts of human limbs, but something heavier, harder. Between impacts came a new sound, bones cracking and reforming. "I'll go for help," Ivanov volunteered suddenly. "The storm's let up slightly. I can make it to the next outpost." "That's suicide, Private," I argued. "I'm resistant to the cold, sir." His hollow eyes held a desperate resolve. "Always have been. And better I die out there trying than in here becoming that." I reluctantly agreed, giving him our coordinates and a flare gun. We watched from the window as he disappeared into the white void. Hours later, gunshots echoed from the direction he'd gone. I grabbed my rifle. "Stay here," I ordered Kuznetsova. "Treat Sokolov. If I'm not back in 30 minutes, barricade yourself in." The snow had indeed lessened, visibility extending to about 50 meters. I followed Ivanov's tracks until I found him halfway to the forest, surrounded by blood-soaked snow. His pistol lay empty beside him. His chest heaved with labored breaths, but I saw no wound. "Private, what happened?" His eyes found mine, clarity returning briefly. "I saw what I really am," he gasped. "What we all become when the mask of civilization slips." Then he convulsed, his back arching impossibly. I heard bones snap, his jaw distended, teeth suddenly too numerous, too sharp. I shot him through the head. It was mercy. When I returned to the outpost, the storage room door hung in splinters. Morozov had escaped. Worse, Sokolov had vanished from his sickbed. A trail of black fluid led outside, joining boot prints in the snow. Boot prints that gradually elongated, deepened, became something inhuman. "They're transforming," Kuznetsova said, her scientific detachment finally cracking. "Whatever this is, it's not just killing us. It's becoming us." That's when we saw it fully for the first time. A towering, emaciated figure with a deer skull head and antlers of bone, moving with impossible speed through the diminishing blizzard. It circled the outpost, herding us back inside like prey. We barricaded ourselves in the command building, but it was too late. Inside, we found Morozov and Sokolov, or what remained of them. Their limbs had elongated, skin stretched gray over distorted frames. They crouched over Ivanov's body, which I'd dragged back. They were feeding. They turned as we entered, too many teeth in too wide mouths. Their eyes glowed with the same coal ember light I'd seen in the forest. "Run!" I shoved Kuznetsova toward the rear exit, firing my pistol into what had once been my men. The bullets struck true, but they barely flinched. I emptied my magazine into them as they advanced. Sokolov dropped, dark fluid pooling beneath him. Morozov kept coming. I switched to my knife as he lunged. We crashed through a doorway, tumbling into the snow outside. His strength was inhuman, jaws snapping inches from my throat. I drove my blade into his eye, again and again, until he finally stopped moving. Rolling away, I felt the first pangs of unnatural hunger myself. My stomach cramped violently, and for a moment, Kuznetsova looked like walking meat. I understood then. The entity didn't just want to kill. It wanted to spread, to transform us all into carriers of its insatiable hunger. Kuznetsova was badly wounded. Morozov had gouged her side before I killed him. I dragged her to the commander's office and barricaded us inside. "You're infected too," she observed clinically as I bandaged her wound. "Your eyes, they're changing." The hunger twisted my insides, whispering that her flesh would ease the pain. I bit my lip until it bled, focusing on my own pain instead. "This entity," she continued, her medical training asserting itself even now. "It feeds on guilt and shame, as much as flesh." Her eyes met mine knowingly. "Your secret from Leningrad, Lieutenant? It knows. We all have our hungers. Some are just more honest about it." Outside, the storm had reached impossible intensity. The wind sounded like screams. Perhaps it was screams. The Wendigo stalked the perimeter, patient and ancient. Kuznetsova slipped away as night fell, blood loss and the cold taking her. Before she died, she pressed something into my hand, a detonator. "The commander," she whispered. "Be prepared, if this happened again." I found the charges, already wired throughout the outpost. Smart man, that commander. He'd known what might follow his men back. As the barricade began to splinter, I loaded my final bullets. The Wendigo breached with ease, revealing its true form, not just a monster, but a mirror reflecting my own atrocities during the siege. "We are the same." It spoke directly into my mind. "Surrender to the hunger." "Some hungers should remain unfed," I answered, pressing the detonator. Spring. 1943. A new Soviet reconnaissance team investigates the destroyed outpost site. I watch them from the tree line, my new form hidden among the shadows. They find no bodies, only my service record and partial journal. Death by misadventure during extreme weather conditions, their commander dictates to a scribe. I notice one of their men staring hungrily at his comrades. He was stationed in Leningrad during the siege. I can smell the guilt on him, sweet and tantalizing. When his commander questions his distraction, he smiles unnaturally. "Just thinking about dinner, sir." The hunger has found new vessels, new guilty secrets to exploit. I was wrong to think I could end it with explosives. The cycle continues as snow begins to fall unseasonably around the ruins. I step back deeper into the forest. The hunger drives me now. Winter is coming again, and with it, new prey. The hunger never dies. It only spreads,